It's not a good one.
Yeah. It's not a dinosaur.
An ignorant dinosaur is what it sounds like to me.
Let's bring in Tucker Carlson. He's the host of the wildly successful Tucker Carlson program right here on the Fox News Channel. Good morning, Tucker.
Hey, Tucker.
Oh, well, good morning.
Oh, well, good morning to you.
Let's start at the beginning before we talk about news of the day. What do you make of the president saying Obama wiretapped him? There's, suggestion that it probably has to do with that FISA investigation in June and October. And now the mainstream media has had a complete meltdown with their hair on fire right now. I smell hair on fire in New York City.
This is the most frustrating story I've seen in a long time. I was just talking to Gavin, our producer, through the line. I'm so spun up about it for a couple of reasons. This is a real problem. The U.S. government spying on its own citizens is a long-standing fact.
Yep.
It's a huge problem, and it's clouded by deceit and evasion. Just here's one fact. We don't know how many Americans have their communications swept up by the U.S. government and surveilled because the intelligence agencies won't tell us. Not only will they not tell us, they won't tell the Congress, which is supposed to provide oversight to them. They've been asked directly, and they said, we don't know, and we're not going to find out.
So, Tucker,
this is an infuriating problem. We know for a fact that the National Security Advisor had, when he was a private citizen, before the inauguration, was surveilled by the FBI, and that was leaked. That's a felony. We know this stuff happens, and we know that it has a corrosive effect on government and our civic life, and yet we're not debating it at all, partly because Twitter is not the way to raise this issue, and partly because the Democrats don't want to talk about it. But I guess the bottom line is, yes, this is plausible. We need to find out exactly what happened, and it doesn't seem like we're moving in the direction of finding out.
Well, the president wants an investigation, and these FISA warrants have been sought out. So, we'll have to look at that and see if they actually happened. What happens next, though, Tucker, going forward? Will we be able to find out any of this information, or is it something that's just going to be swept under the rug again?
The president himself can find out, and he can find out and he can let the rest of us know by declassifying this information. He has the power to do that. He can unilaterally declassify whatever he wants. And I hope that he will, because a lot of people like me who've lived here, my whole life and watched this stuff happen are very suspicious that this kind of thing happens regularly.
Yeah.
And again, that shakes everybody's faith in the institution of government. It's corrosive. It's terrible. It has a chilling effect in the most basic way. If you think that the government is listening to you, that your political enemies can destroy you if you step out of line, I mean, you're no longer living in a free society. So it's a huge threat to everything that we think is worth having.
It's so interesting.
So we need to get to the bottom of it.
Tucker, for 8 years when you were doing the morning show, we watched as President Obama, every time you brought up something that seemed unsavory about the Obama administration, there'd be no there there. That's just Fox being Fox. When they're going after Trump, or they're trying to do this, they've never quite met somebody who fights like this.
Right.
He fights harder than anybody else maybe in the country, and he'll be defensive. So he says, oh, you're coming after me. You got this intelligence bureau that seems to be turning on me. Fine, I'm going after you twice as hard. I think that President Obama, in his retirement, might be in the dust-up of his career right now because he's never had an opponent like this. 14 Republicans couldn't handle him. Hillary Clinton couldn't handle him. And now he's trying to handle him, and he can't.
And actually, advantage, by definition, goes to Trump because he's the sitting president. He has millions of people who work for him in the executive branch. He has access to any information that he wants. He's got a lot of smart people there, and I think the order this morning ought to be prepare the case for public consumption of what's going on. Explain, and not in 140 characters, but in paragraphs, what exactly is wrong with the way that we gather and use intelligence against American citizens, what exactly happened to the extent we can find out, and tell us and settle this and fix the problem, because there is a pre-existing problem that he has the power to fix.
Sure, and it should not be that hard to find out about the warrants, because it started as an FBI criminal investigation in June, and then when they were not granted the warrant, then in October they said, you know what, this is a FISA thing, this is national security, and that's when they were granted it. But you know what, Tucker, it's not just the intel community. You've got the press community as well fighting back. Sarah Huckabee, who is one of the spokespeople for the President of the United States, was on with Martha Raddatz, and Martha Raddatz was essentially defending the former president. She was skeptical of the current president. Here's a soundbite of all that.
The President of the United States is accusing the former president of wiretapping him.
I think that this is, again, something that if this happened, Martha, I agree.
Why is the president saying it did happen?
Look, I think he is going off of information that he's seen that has led him to believe that this is a very real potential. And if it is, this is the greatest overreach and the greatest abuse of power that I think we've ever seen, and a huge attack on democracy itself. And the American people have a right to know if this took place.
What do you make of that?
Well, there are 2 points. One, if the sitting president makes a claim, he has to back it up. Period. It's ridiculous. If you it's not allowed. You make a claim, you have to prove it. Those are the rules. You can't break the rules under any circumstances. 1. 2, the press is willfully ignoring the truth here, which is that this stuff does happen. They're lying about it. So Trump comes out and says this, and the immediate response, including on other channels, is this didn't happen. Really, how do we know that? We don't know that it didn't happen. We know that things like this have happened. It's totally plausible that it happened. So we ought to be very, very skeptical. This is classic abuse of power. Intelligence agencies, beholden really to no one, it seems like, are acting against U.S. citizens. Really? We should get to the bottom of that.
Well, remember they went after 2 reporters, one of which was James Rosen.
Yes,
we
exactly.
also know there's the president reportedly, according to the Wall Street Journal, was reading transcripts of Benjamin Netanyahu's interaction with some members of Congress here.
Exactly.
So that has happened.
So it makes it hard to trust.
And it's terrifying that it's happened. It's terrifying that it's happened. And by the way, notice the reflexive position of the press, which is that the intelligence agencies are always right. I can't tell you the number of interviews I've done in the last month where people said all 17 intelligence agencies believe Russia interfered in the election. Well, the average question is, do we have 17 intelligence agencies? Can you name them? Do you have any idea what you're talking about? No, of course you have no idea. You're just pointing to this institution and trusting it. That's the opposite of what we ought to be doing as the press.
Absolutely. Of course, during the conclusion of the Obama administration, the person at the head of the Department of Justice supposed to be, an impartial presenter of the facts as she knows them. And yet we've got a soundbite of Loretta Lynch, I believe it was about 10 days, 2 weeks ago, where, keep in mind, she is the former Attorney General of the United States of America. Regarding the protest and this president, she said this. Listen, Tucker.
They've marched, they've bled. Yes, some of them have died. This is hard. Every good thing is. We have done this before, we can do this again.
We can do this again. It sounds like she's calling for more blood in the streets.
Well, I mean, she's pointed to the civil rights movement as the template for all social and political change. And here's the guardian of law and order saying if you don't like something, take to the streets and get rowdy. I mean, that's kind of the opposite message. I mean, first of all, it's not the civil rights movement. This is not 1962. Things are completely different. And by the way, what is she exactly talking about? She begins the tape by saying our rights are being eroded. Really, which rights? Can you be specific? You were the Attorney General of the United States. There's so much reckless talk on the left right now that it's starting to rattle people, I think. But that's the last person you'd expect would be saying it. The former Attorney General, really?
And Tucker, as I recall, the election of the President of the United States was lawful and legal, and he's it.
Well, and what exactly are the complaints? I mean, what rights are being eroded? In what ways are we less free? What exactly are you talking about?
Upon further review, there's no follow-up to that. And finally, in the big picture, no one, including James Clapper, sees any type of collaboration between the Trump camp, collusion between the Trump camp and Russian intelligence.
Right.
Clapper says that yesterday. The early intelligence report yielded that, according to Marco Rubio and Senator Tom Cotton early. They just want to see what's going on, so let them see what's going on. But some people should report that the same people that say about wiretapping also see no collusion.
Yeah, well, I mean, Clapper's also the one who told Congress that, the NSA was not spying on American citizens. He lied and was never held accountable for it. And by the way, lots of Republicans in the Congress defended him at the time. I wish they hadn't. We have a right to know if the government is spying on us. I have broken no laws. I'm an American citizen. I pay my taxes. Are they spying on me? That's a totally fair question. I have a right to know the answer to that. And I'm glad President Trump has brought this up because maybe it'll spur more people to demand, a clear accounting of what exactly is going on.
Right,
I want to find out if you are indeed happier sleeping longer and working at night. And the only way to do that is to hack your emails.
You've got my password already,
We'll be watching you tonight, Tucker, at 9 o'clock. And Brian announced earlier he is only happy if he's flying in the air on a motorcycle. What makes you most happy, Tucker?
Oh, gosh. Fishing with my dogs, probably.
Not being on our show?
Right.
I love being on your show. And I love you particularly, Ainsley,
I love
as you know.
you more. Thanks, Tucker.
All right.